So anything you would say to my audience to help move them forward in a positive way?
I would just encourage everyone to just start. Oftentimes, the most difficult thing to do is just start. We put it off all our way to next week. Wait, Thanksgiving coming up. I can't. No, no. You have to prove and demonstrate to yourself that you're going to do. When you make your mind up, you have to be totally persuaded. I'm not
Mm,
going to do this. I'm going to take control of my health. This is about self care. How do I learn how to take care of myself? I, Dr. T, you know I love you, but I hope 20, 25 years from now, there's no need for just primary physicians. I mean, I see people using diet and lifestyle as a
mhm.
way to sustain themselves, to avoid
That's right.
chronic disease. That's my
That's right.
ultimate vision. Mhm.
Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Today, we're diving into a powerful story of transformation and resilience. Our guest today will be Sam Davis, who is an educator with over 20 years of experience and the Education Practitioner at Nutritional Knowledge, a groundbreaking organization dedicated to improving metabolic health by helping people optimize their A1C and reverse chronic conditions. After struggling with his weight for over 45 years or so, Sam transformed his health by questioning conventional dietary wisdom and embracing a low carb lifestyle. He has since lost nearly 50 pounds and feels healthier than he has in decades. Sam recently fired up the crowd at the Metabolic Revolution Rally in Washington, D.C. And today he's here to share his journey, insights, and the mission of nutritional knowledge. And with that, my friend, my brother, I appreciate you and thank you for coming to the podcast. We should have done this a long time ago.
Indeed. And thank you, Dr. T, for having me.
Absolutely. And recently we participated in an event you guys sponsored, and I kind of snuck in on it virtually. Couldn't make it because I had to go to a gala. But it was such a privilege to participate. You also had the privilege of having Dr. Kim Berry there. I really appreciate that, brother from another mother as well. And I'm sure you guys had a nice event. So I want to thank you for you and your wife, Denitra, for just being in a community, trying to reach people who need to hear this information. And as we kind of start our conversation, we'll kind of hear a little bit about you. And I know you've had this weight issue you've struggled with. I mentioned it in the intro. Let's go back a little bit to where your journey began, and what was the turning point that led you to the low carb lifestyle in the first place?
Well, that's an interesting question. One that I've revisited on numerous occasions, actually. And I remember it vividly. I was 8 years old, and I considered myself to be a handsome young man. But one of the things all the girls would say is that you're cute, but you're fat.
Wow.
And so I struggled psychologically with that for years. And I wasn't aware of it then, but looking back on the trauma and the things that it put me through mentally, it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate, but I got through it. That lasted from about 8 until I was 14. At 14 years old, I was resolved to get that weight off me. So
Mm,
I left town. I went to stay with my dad for over the summer. I came back. I was a totally different person. I had lost about 40 pounds. I felt good. I was motivated. I was eager for all the girls to see me too.
right.
But what it illustrated is that I was capable of controlling how I looked and how I felt about myself. Now, I was still
Mm,
kind of young, so I really didn't really grasp the significance of it. And so my weight tended to go up and down over the next 20, 25 years. I
mm,
did have other episodes of triumph. I think the last time was in 93. I
mhm,
was 23 years old. I remember it. So once again, I had to revisit it. I had to take control physically of
mm,
myself so I could present myself the way I wanted to.
mm,
That lasted a brief period of time up until 2020. Of course, the world changed in 2020 with the introduction of this virus that we
mhm,
dealt with. And so a lot of things I was trying to conceptualize a lot of things. It was really a good time to put things in perspective. And so I started to evaluate my diet. I started to evaluate a whole lot of things. And so I tried some things. Also, that was the year I met my wife. And so she began to just slowly drop nuggets on me about things
Mm,
that I could try to eat that might resolve the situation. And so finally I gave in. Not
mm,
all the way, because remember, food is highly addictive, and I had a lot of addiction I had to overcome. And so I initially started out with some of the vegetables and the cauliflower, and trying to come up with creative recipes that we could to at least try to simulate the taste.
mm-hmm,
That worked for a while, but I was still indulging in my favorite peanut butter cookies, and I would go up and down and up and down. In March of last year, in 2023, I had a real epiphany when my little brother passed away from congestive heart failure. I remember going through his apartment shortly after being there and seeing all the vestiges of,
mm,
I mean, the Kool-Aid with the sugar, all the processed foods. I was literally looking at how he ate himself to death. That I had an epiphany that day.
mm,
I really still just kind of struggled with myself for about, maybe 11 months. But in February of this year, 2024, I resolved no more sugar, no more processed foods.
mm-hmm,
I'm going to achieve the health and weight and look that I really want.
mm.
And now we're here, and today we're here.
That's what I'm talking about. And shout out to Denitra, your wife, for
Indeed, indeed,
nudging you.
indeed.
The people that come into our lives, they bless us so much. And a good partner who loves you, trying to be gentle with the nudge is very important. And I really want to say to the parents out there who have babies they're raising, we have to be careful to not miss out on the opportunity to teach them how to treat their peers. So your peers, when you were a little gentleman, helped to inspire you. And I just want to, think about a parent. What does a parent say? And they have to teach their kids to think about the language they use when they're talking to their friends. They need to maybe learn that body shaming, using terms like fat, probably not a good idea. So it's even important not to even overemphasize appearance. Some of the most wonderful. I was listening to Club Shay Shay, and
Okay.
he had Miss Pat, the comedian, on it. And she's she had a rough childhood, but I'm gonna tell you, she's a large lady, but has so much to give the world. And we don't want to fat shame people just because they don't appear the way you want them to appear. So for all the parents, make sure your babies know, if I fat shame my peer, that's going to affect their self esteem. That's going to maybe give them unrealistic standards. Maybe Miss Pat doesn't have to be skinny to be healthy. She just maybe had to lose a few pounds, but we have to be careful. So we want people to be healthy, but how we talk to each other is so important. So I'm just happy that you were able to kind of survive those years of shaming, and but it did inspire. You took a negative and turned into a positive. So that's really amazing. And as you think about you learning information from Denitra, your wife, and others, there's a lot of myths. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And every time I was just on something called Trend Nation, and it's just a local group that has a little show on their public health access channel. And I was talking about, if you make the Brussels sprouts, it's okay to use the bacon with it. And she said, bacon, isn't pork bad for you? I said, no, it's bad for the pig, but it ain't bad for me. and
Right.
it's and in fact, in all those places like the blue zones, the pork is probably the most commonly eaten form of animal protein, yet it's the place where people live the longest. So all these myths. So when you think about like conventional thinking and where you were there things, misinformation that you researched that you said, okay, this is totally opposite of what I had thought it was?
I think, I mean, that's a great question. And I think for me, the more I got into this lifestyle, the more I started to make conscious choices, the more I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a number of disturbing revelations, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably two of the most profound was, first of all, the majority of food that I thought I was eating was food wasn't really food.
Mm.
That was revelational. I couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was doing well based on the diet that I had. I didn't eat much. I was perplexed. I said, I know I don't eat much, but so why can't I release this weight? And
Mm.
so that when I
Mm.
found out that the things that I was actually eating weren't really food, that
Mm.
was profound. And another thing I think when I found out that the regulatory agencies really don't have our best interests at heart,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they allow things to be purchased on the market that really aren't good for us.
That's right.
That
That's
was
right.
disheartening. That was
That's
really
right.
disheartening. And so you become defensive and you realize that this is about self-care versus
Mm-hmm.
healthcare.
Yeah, no doubt. When I did a video recently, where I highlighted RFK, and it was kind of funny because I didn't tell my wife I was going to do a video with RFK on the thumbnail. I knew she would, you know, without being political, that maybe wasn't something she would, because she had no clue what I was trying to do. What I was trying to say is that at least RFK understands that countries in Europe allow things or don't allow things that we in America allow. For example, red dye 40 and yellow dye 5. They're just numbers, but those dyes can be harmful, but yet they allow it in the United States. So, but then you understand um, another point that he points out is that the FDA is biased because they're sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry and others. But I think it's 40+% of their funding comes from industry. So how in the heck are you going to regulate the people that you actually get money from?
That
That's
was my
never going to
question
make sense.
precisely. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. That's a
It,
real conflict of interest is what it is.
that's all it is. So
Right.
our goal is to not, demonize the people who work for the FDA. Our goal is to provide clarity that just an FYI, the FDA is sponsored by industry. So when you get information, it's possible that they may not be representing your interest, but the interest of the sponsor. That's just common sense. Now, again, I don't know the heart and soul of people who work for these organizations. Most of them just trying to feed their family. So I'm not going to demonize them. But I just want to be clear, we have to at least know that information. So part of our journey is to make sure that information is known, which is why nutritional knowledge, with that little fancy name y'all done came up with,
Absolutely.
is important. And so obviously there's a role of food in chronic illness. And I guess my question, you and your lovely wife, when you guys came up with this organization, how are you going to use that organization to help people in the community know that food is probably the number one lever you can pull if you correct it to not have to live with chronic illness? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, of course, if your viewers need more technical information, they can visit our website, nutritionalknowledge.com.
That's
But
right.
simply put, our aim is threefold. First, to help people self identify. You need to know what your macronutrient profile is. What are
Mm,
you consuming? I have a segment that I'm developing now called Fix Your Plate, where, it's similar to what you were doing, exposing the number of carbs in foods and percentages and stuff like that. I think
that's
that
right.
was phenomenal. And then, you need to learn about yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so once you self identify, you can self advocate, because you will find once you start to learn some things and you go to the doctor and you're asking these questions and you're curious about and you're taking ownership of your own health, there will be some pushback. There will be
Mm-hmm.
some, and so you have to be able to self advocate. And finally, the third pillar is We provide them with an opportunity to amplify their voice by joining a community of like-minded people. It takes
Mm,
people. That's the only way
mm.
we're going to get things changed. And I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that we'll make a real impact.
I'm so optimistic. I really wish more people had a chance to go to the Metabolic Revolution Rally.
Mhm.
And as
Historic.
we, yeah, historic, and when you're blessed to be at the Sylvian Theater stage, and then you have this beautiful historic Washington Monument in front of you as you're talking to the crowd,
Mhm.
you really put things in perspective. I don't know how I got here, but one of the things I loved about the rally is that there was this young man who got on the stage and started, you know, getting the crowd riled up, and that young man was you. So, and I really appreciated the energy you brought as you kind of shared a message at the end of the rally. So, what were you trying to share there when you were there? And what did that moment, being a part of the Metabolic Revolution Rally, what did that mean to you personally?
Well, I wanted them to feel the urgency, the sense of urgency.
Mm,
This thing is real. People are dying every day. I mean, when you reach literally, when you reach the point where when you're out and about and you're looking at people and the only thing you're thinking about is ways to help them get better, this thing is unescapable. So this is who I am. This is what I'll be doing.
mm,
And I wanted them to just understand that they can take ownership of themselves. You don't have to rely on anyone. Just find your form, learn who you are. Your body
mm-hmm,
will tell you. I want them to be confident that they can do it with some
mm,
minor adjustments, just with some. And I like what you said earlier. We don't we are an education service provider. So
mm-hmm,
we're not advocating for any particular diet. We're not encouraging or discouraging you from doing anything. We just want to present you with factual information.
mm-hmm.
A lot of the information that people make decisions on now are based on myths, on theories. We just want to introduce the concept of research. We want our information to be research based. I don't see anything radically wrong with that.
That's exactly what it should be. And I think just like the assumption, if I see an educator like yourself, the assumption is that you know what you're teaching. If somebody comes to see me and I'm a doctor, they assume I know how to diagnose medical conditions and help them heal. But they also assume that the people who teach us the dietary guidelines, I spoke about the FDA, they make assumptions, and sometimes we need to provide clarity when those assumptions are not true. Yes, the dietary guidelines are not exactly evidence-based. That's just fact. And why would that not be evidence-based? And at the
Precisely.
minimum, if it's not evidence-based, at least, and when they make it evidence-based, it should be of the highest quality of evidence, because you're really talking about the entire country. Oops, that's a mistake. I said something wrong. You're talking about the world, because up until this point, people follow what we do in the United States. And if we do something wrong, they're going to do something wrong too, because they assume that we did our due diligence. And the reality is, because of lobbyists and special interests and many other factors, that's not exactly the case. So we need organizations like Nutritional Knowledge to help provide a place where people can go learn things that are evidence-based from people who care about them. And I think I want to go back a little bit with that and ask you, when you and that lovely wife, Denitra, sat down, I mean, how did you guys even decide, okay, we need to do this? What was that conversation like? And 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 what unique approach do you think you guys can bring to people to help them achieve metabolic health?
When we initially sat down, it was based on a community need. We were literally out in the community watching people.
Mm-hmm,
I am sort of an origin kind of guy, so I like research.
mm-hmm,
And as I began to look at the numbers relevant to the number of people right here in this county who were sick with chronic diseases, in addition to being out and about, seeing it, hearing stories and situations that people are in, I mean, it was just compelling. It was there. We both, at the same time, just kind of mutually decided that this is what we were going to do. We wanted to be the change that that we wanted. We wanted to
Hmm.
actually be it rather than relying on someone else or anything like that. We just wanted to take the initiative and really just go with it all out.
I love it. When it comes to something that I think we both understand, you mentioned, self-identify, so you'll know what you're eating, know who you are, self-advocate because people are going to come at you,
Yes, they
and
are.
then surround yourself with folk. But one of the things that we all get when we go see a doctor are labs and one of which is an A1C. I know you guys really think that's important. So when it comes to A1C, why do you think that's an important thing to focus on for people that you guys, provide information for?
I think it's the perfect snapshot of how your body is reacting to what it's consuming
Hmm.
and over a specified period of time. And so that's an excellent starting point. If you could see, okay, you see I'm going up and down and you see I'm a little bit elevated. So I might need to readjust some of the things I'm consuming. I think it's that simple to me. But then
Hmm.
again, it's not. And so the A1C is essential in that it could kind of expose so many other things that are happening
Hmm.
in your body. And so that's why we initially want to start there. Of course, there are some other things that go with that we assist people with, but that's a good start. And we
Yeah.
encourage our members and people that attend our events to start with that. Get your A1C.
Yeah, I like the focus on that because, you think about metabolic disease and we think about blood pressure, blood sugar, triglycerides, HDL, and the belly size. We kind of have all of those things, but when you can get a test in front of you that will really look at the average blood sugar over 2 to 3 months, right? So you can't
Right.
say, people come in the office all the time and say, well, doc, today is a bad day because of A, B, and C. But with the A1C, it didn't have nothing to do with today. It's like it's an
Precisely.
average, right? And I
Good
just think
snapshot.
it's a snapshot, and what people need to understand is that if you are diagnosed with pre-diabetes, and God knows we see it so often, you got about 70-80% chance of becoming diabetic in your lifetime. So wouldn't it be nice to know that in advance and do some tests that can easily give you a sense of that? And the fasting insulin test is another test we do that can even predict it even earlier. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to track your progress? So if you had a slightly elevated, in fact, on Saturday, the week of this recording, I'll be we have a diabetes prevention program, so I'm gonna kind of join that group, just like I joined you guys and spent about 45 minutes celebrating people who are graduating from the class, and just give them some additional things to think about, because when you're on this journey, you have to set goals, and some of the goal is, well, I'm trying not to be borderline diabetic in this group's case, so I'm trying to make sure I'm exercising, trying to make sure I'm eating right. But then I want to provide the context of what now. So maybe many of those graduates of the program have achieved that, but what now? And truth be told, life is a struggle. So you're going to always have to be working towards something, and you're going to have to say, well, what's next? And my job is to provide that knowledge of what is next. Now, speaking of knowledge, there's a lot of power in knowledge, and I think you learned that as you worked with your wife to improve your personal health, and you're doing that with others. But your organization's tagline kind of hints at a question. If you knew better, would you, could you, should you do better? So, how has empowering others with knowledge changed lives, and why is education such a key to your approach?
Well, people are just unaware. Literally just unaware of a lot of things. Many people are habitual, so they do things that they've seen others done, that they grew up doing, without any explanation or reason. And so once they learn that, okay, what I initially thought was beneficial, what I initially thought was tradition and custom, is what has been preventing me from living my best life. So if I can achieve a few tweaks here and there, mainly eliminating harmful ingredients, then I might be able to sustain I can see some tangible changes in myself. I mean, you start to feel it. You know that you feel better, you look better, and that's something worth working towards. And so I think once people know, they have their own epiphany. There are
Mhm.
always this period where they're going to doubt themselves, and we see that with a lot of the people who attend the events. They initially have this doubt about, can I do it? And the most pressing question they always have is, okay, what's next? How do I sustain this?
Mhm.
And so, how we're going to address that is we're going to provide them with cooking demonstrations and recipes, and actually show them how you can eat. One of the things that we
Mhm.
had with our last conference was actual examples of some of the
Mhm.
food, because we don't want people think that you have to deprive yourself. You really don't. And
Mm-mm,
we
not at all.
always say no deprivation over
Not
here.
at all. Yeah, we eat very well, and
Indeed.
it's actually sometimes you chuckle when people say things like that, but man, I tell you, we have a nice variety. We get a little creative sometimes from a carnivore perspective, but I tell you, we love it. And this is a message because you have two African American men speaking on this episode. I think it's important that we at least speak to the African American community. They have unique health challenges. I would argue, damn near every, excuse my French, most communities have challenges. Let's be clear about
Is it
that.
true?
That people are struggling, and I always remind myself of that. If you just peel the onion back and talk to people, all races, all cultures, they're all struggling, and only a small percentage of people are really kind of cruising through life, at least in terms of resources. Most people are not. So, but when it comes to the communities of color, African American in particular, they do have these unique challenges, and I'm curious, you know, have as you've started to teach that community. I noticed that during the gathering that we had, it was a lot of people of color. You know, have you started to see the benefits of them as they've kind of started low carb journeys, keto, carnivore, and have you seen any barriers, cultural barriers that have made it more challenging to engage that community?
That's a good question. Really, it goes by each one teach one. Typically, most of the attendees have either known someone who've interacted with us, who've benefited from our services, and they're curious. They want to learn more about how their loved one or their friend or whomever it is achieving this health at a slow, gradual pace, as opposed to, no pills, no juicing, no shots, no any of this thing. And so they're curious and they're coming out. Relative to obstacles, I know my people. I
Mm,
love my people. And that was a major motivating force behind us starting this, was the abundance of misinformation that our community is confronted with, the what they call food deserts.
mm,
I think that concept, if there's such a thing, our community is not only a desert, it doesn't even exist. And so I think it was really imperative for us to focus exclusively on this historically underserved community. We want to provide them with some information so they can make choices. They can make informed choices. A lot of times affordability comes up as an issue, but we try to work
mm-hmm,
with them and show them creative, budget friendly ways that they can sustain themselves, in a healthy kind of way. It's saddening to see these things being continually passed down to other generations. Our young people are eating these Takis and all these things that are manufactured that are not good for them. So we have to stop this. We have to correct
mm-hmm,
this now, and we will. We
mm-hmm.
will.
Yeah,
We're just
it's
trying to get the word out.
trying to get it out. Yeah, and I think you pointing out food deserts. I mean, we have a food pharmacy. In fact, the person who invited me to come to the diabetes prevention program, we also work together with the food pharmacy. I think this awareness that there are disparities, that certain communities don't have access. I mean, we're just trying to keep even Walgreens
Right.
in some of these communities because there's a lot of pharmacies that are closing, and they're going to have pharmacy deserts real soon if we
Yeah.
don't do something about it. Maybe it'll provide opportunities for the entrepreneur pharmacist who wants to do his
Hopefully.
own thing. Yeah,
Hopefully.
that'll hopefully, right? But I wouldn't count on that because it's hard to have the courage to do that, and I think that misinformation. that's out there that we spoke about earlier. It's easier when you hear it from someone you may trust a little bit more. So sometimes having a messenger who understands the community from the community is very helpful. And when we did our healthy living program with our health system with Advocate, we made sure that we had a variety of presenters, some of which who had that community background. We mixed it in with people who did not. But the key is that you had to have people in front of other people who they could trust. And it was just so important. I found it very impactful. So I'm so happy you guys are going to be out there doing this thing. I know for you personally, we talked about your weight, but beyond the weight, right? There's so many benefits of the diet. So I think, um, let's talk a little bit briefly about what is your diet. I'm kind of
Okay.
mentioning low carb, keto, and carnivore, and then what other benefits that you see beyond weight loss?
So I typically don't like the categories. I know folks have all kind of categories: carnivore, ketovore-ish, and so after I identified my formula, so I like to be around 40% protein. I hope to get to 50 to 60% fat, but I like to stay around 40% protein, maybe 55% fat. I'm still periodically maybe at like 5%
Hmm.
carbs.
Okay.
So I'm not all the way optimal, but at least I'm aware of my situation. I know what benefits me physically. And so I can make informed choices. If I choose to deviate, then I do that based on knowledge. So it's an empowering kind of thing, but I eat meat mostly.
Yeah. Right.
So I eat meat mostly. I don't really eat very many carbs at all, including fruits or vegetables. And
Okay.
so I try to stay clear of that. And I feel phenomenal. The clarity, the mental clarity is one of the things that I think is not really highlighted as much as it should be. But there's a mental clarity that comes with feeding your body what it needs. It's just beyond explanation. And I just want other people to experience that, guys. You can do it.
That's right.
I mean, sometimes we have to give people that push. They come in timidly, like, I don't know, I've heard so much. There's so much information out there, Dr. T, about holistic and what fruits and vegetables you should eat, why you shouldn't eat meat. I mean, people are inundated with information. And so at Nutritional Knowledge, we just want an objective place that people could come to get facts. We're not
Mhm.
supported by anyone. We're not advocating any particular diet. We're not selling anything. All we
Mhm.
want is people to inform themselves, empower yourself with knowledge so you can move forward in a way that benefits you and your family.
Yeah. And the life of chronic disease
It's not fun.
is not fun, right? It's not fun. And your job in the work you're doing is to counsel, advise, support, make accountable the people that you're teaching. So when you have people in front of you and they feel overwhelmed, because making lifestyle changes is very challenging when it's the opposite of what you've been doing. So when people are in
Absolutely.
front of you and they're trying to make these changes, what types of things do you say to them to get them to make that change?
I, I I try to stay away from being accusatory, or I want to make it. I just like to present information out. So many times I will say, "Did you know?" I will preface what I
Mhm.
say by "Did you
Right. Did
know?"
you know? Right.
And oftentimes that'll get you so far, but I found that there's a fine line because
Mhm.
people become offended. I mean, I've lost associates based on my lifestyle and me constantly trying to advise people. I became sort of the food police at my job.
Mm. Right.
And so you condemn people. I
Yeah.
mean, so you make people feel some kind of way, even by your presence when you're around them and they're eating something that you've advised them might not be the best for them. And so I kind of go through that, but I'm used to that. I don't mind at all. I want to be one that inspires others or challenges them,
Mhm.
regardless. But I mean,
Yep.
this is something that there's a lot at stake. This is something that transcends race, religion.
Mhm.
We all have to eat,
Right.
and so we all have to eat. And so one of the things that I would hope is that we can all come to a consensus about minimum standards of safety something that we can all agree on that, okay, that's not too good for us. We won't eat, regardless of how much money it'll bring in. I talked about the economic interest.
Mm-hmm.
Too often we put profits ahead of people, and we can't tolerate that anymore.
No, we gotta let that go,
And we
and
do
we
indeed.
gotta let that go. And
We do.
when I'm talking to patients, a lot of times I may share an appropriate a life experience. Maybe it's of an unnamed patient or something I've experienced in my family or personally. So when you think about lessons you've learned from rather it's a success or failure, um, anything comes to mind that you may use when you talk to people that'll help keep them on track or at least inspire them to take action?
Never give up. And for me, they can see the progress. So for me,
Mm,
with the people I interact with, they could visually see me literally shrinking. And so as I'm advocating for these specific choices, they can see the effect it's having on me. I think that's been the most profound. Because I live this. I'm not just talking about something
right.
I heard or I read in the book. This is something I live every day. And I just
Every
invite others to share the lifestyle.
I love that. Your wife, you guys, how long have you guys been together now?
This is what, 24. We've been married 4 years.
Okay, cool. And um, so you have her as an active partner with nutritional knowledge, and um, she's had a transformation herself. And I had her on the podcast, FYI, guys. So
Indeed,
I'll maybe
indeed.
have a link to that episode in this episode, so
Okay.
you'll get the full package. How has supporting each other influence your individual journeys? Because I know for me, my wife, man, she does stuff still today. Sometimes, I mean, she a Southern belle, man. I know you guys are in the South, and for my audience, tell them where you are and what
We're
part
in
of the world.
Tennessee.
Tennessee
Yes, sir.
with the rest of the Southern belles, and
Indeed.
my wife, man, I mean, the stuff she does, and I'm a city man. I grew up with a single mom, and I just didn't have the same experiences. But my wife will sometimes my clothes are sitting out in the morning. She, has it sitting out for me. I'm like, I'm not used to that, right? This is something I had
Okay.
to get
Right.
used to.
Okay.
I remember when uh, there are times when I remember, and then we try to do more, but man, there are times when I'm sitting at the table and she bringing me my plate. You don't do that in Chicago. You better get your own plate. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just
Right.
these
I understand.
Southern, motherly kind of nurturing things. And having a lady in your life that does that is amazing. So anyway, you know, you guys supporting each other, is just so important. And how has that made life easier for you?
You know what? I'm gonna tell y'all a secret. One of the things, it really helps you to really get to know your partner. I mean, you get to see all the vulnerabilities.
Right.
You see the times that they almost give in and they're talking to themselves, trying to justify the choice. But you get to be there and hold them accountable. That has probably been the most beneficial. We get to hold each other accountable. Now we're
Mm,
human. We're
mhm.
human now. So we still have struggles and we still have to support each other.
That's
There
right.
are numerous times where I'll tell Nietzsche, now, you're not supposed to be eating that. And
Mhm.
she'll tell me. I mean, but since she does most of the cooking, I'm pretty good. So, but I don't cheat on myself. I don't cheat myself. So when I'm out, I don't go. Believe me, I get tempted. And so
Mhm.
that's why the community is important, because I need to be able to call someone when I smell them peanut butter
Mhm.
cookies. Who can I call and say, look, talk me off the edge. I'm about to get some of them peanut butter cookies.
I know. That's funny. I actually love peanut butter
I
cookies,
used to
as
too, but
well.
I can't eat
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I need to keep even peanuts off the counter. I just made a video, comparing a Snickers bar to, oatmeal, and, I used to love those Snickers bars, and anything with
Oh, me
peanuts in
too.
it.
Me too.
So so maybe if I have a moment of indulgence, I'll go there. But I tell you, it's something that I don't miss because I feel phenomenal and I just want to feel
Indeed.
good. And that's
Indeed.
kind of I think long term and short term. So when I think about short term goals, I want to feel good, but I also want to not be holding my chest, in my 50s or 60s, you know, in general. So when you think about, you've had this health transformation, but there are more goals that you have moving forward, personal goals. So how do you hope to, you know, you know, personally take care of your own goals or even impact others over the next decade or so? I mean, what's your long-term goals with all this stuff?
Well, they're always shifting, Dr. T. I remember when I was over 205, my main goal was to get down to 205
Hmm.
and to be able to sleep a full night without waking up. And so that was my start. When I initially started, I wanted to get down to 205. It was unfathomable that I could even get down to 205.
Right.
So once I got down to 205 and I saw that it was doable, I could actually achieve it, then I set another goal. And
Hmm.
that trend has continued. I'm down now to about 178. And so I went from a 38 right on the precipice of a 40, right on the precipice of a 40 to a 34 loose. And
Mm.
so it just tells me that I can do whatever I really want to do. Whatever I put my mind to, I can do.
Yeah. I agree.
And you
And
can, anyone can.
well, and rather I'm talking to my kids or sometimes I'm grabbing an Eric Thomas motivational, YouTube video,
Okay.
the hip hop preacher they call him, and I'll send it to my kids after I've listened to it. And
Okay.
if anybody's checking us out, it's Sam has made it very clear that there's still struggle, but
Indeed.
but even though we struggle, we out here teaching other people. So there is nobody in the low carb keto carnivore community, and I would even argue in the vegetarian vegan community that's not struggling. It's always going to be a struggle. All you can do is have the tools to deal with the struggle. And if you think you're going to wake up one day and never struggle, you're probably not here anymore. And
Right.
it's okay. It's okay because that's what life is. And that's why I use the Eric Thomases and the Anthony Robbins and the Les Browns of the world to continue to. I even listen to this guy, Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters. He's just
Okay.
as crazy as they get. He's in Europe, and he starts his little channel, Peace, Infinite Waters, diving deep once again. And he's
Okay.
like he sounds like he in the Twilight Zone, but he's I think he's a psychologist, and he
Okay.
always throws nuggets. And a lot of times it's the same stuff, but it don't matter it's the same stuff because it's what we need to hear over and over again.
Indeed.
So we can be the best version of ourselves and we can have the confidence we need. So don't get it twisted. Sam and Tony still struggle.
We do
And
indeed.
we're just trying to show you a path to make that struggle less impactful on your life. And that's what this is all about. And I do want to, ask you this question. People are going to struggle and they need, you know, words of encouragement. So just a word or two of how people can, or how you personally deal with these setbacks when you face those challenges. What do you do to kind of overcome them?
Well, I think I'm unique in that since I've been off certain things for an extended period of time, if I revisit those things that I used
Mhm.
to do or consume, there's more often than not a physical price to pay, meaning there may be bumps that develop, there's a pain that emerges. And so I just got to the point to where it's not worth it. I don't want to feel like that. I want to avoid the
Mhm.
pain. I want to be able to walk. I want to be able to move around.
Hmm.
And so for me, it's a no brainer. It's not worth it. I mean, I've ended up in the emergency room after not consuming sugar for extended period of time and then over consuming it. And so I know
Mm.
firsthand that this thing is real. It's real and it's
It's real.
continuous. It's continuous. And I want everyone to know I am not perfect because in this journey, this walk that we're on, that's one of the things people will do. I want them to know I still have vices. I still have things that I'm working on. I still make mistakes, so, and I will continue to do so until I'm no longer here. So I'm not
Yeah.
perfect. I don't profess to be such. So I just want, to give everyone an opportunity to come together and work on this thing together. I can encourage you, I can support you, and we can do this thing together.
Yeah, together. And speaking of
Together.
together, you clearly stated that your wife has helped you. And I'm gonna say my wife Karan has done that as well. And one of the things that she always says, man, is here's an opportunity for growth. So when you have a challenging moment, rather it's in a relationship or otherwise, there's opportunities for growth. So we have to reframe our struggle as opportunities, right?
Precisely. Your
Is that
mindset.
it's a mindset and
It
how you
is.
look at, and that's kind of what those inspirational people like Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters, what he does is he helps us to reframe
Hmm.
how we think about the exact same situation that devastated the next person. The first time somebody says no to you when you're applying for a job, you said thank you, because and please tell me how I'll be better for the next job I apply to, because you just helped me out, because I'm gonna kill it next time. And if you get no again, thank you, because now I'm gonna find out where I need to do better. And I think that's life. When I struggle, I choose it as an opportunity for growth. So I really appreciate that. Now, if you were to say to my audience, words of, kind of like your final words of, motivation, inspiration, what would you say to them, to just get them to understand that their life will be different if they get the knowledge to heal and then use that healing to then live their life purpose? So anything you would say to my audience to help move them forward in a positive way?
I would just encourage everyone to just start. Oftentimes, the most difficult thing to do is just start. We put it off all our way to next week. Wait, Thanksgiving coming up. I can't. No, no. You have to prove and demonstrate to yourself that you're going to do. When you make your mind up, you have to be totally persuaded. I'm not
Mm,
going to do this. I'm going to take control of my health. This is about self care. How do I learn how to take care of myself? I, Dr. T, I love you, but I hope 20, 25 years from now, there's no need for just primary physicians. I mean, I see people using diet and lifestyle as a
mhm.
way to sustain themselves, to avoid
That's right.
chronic disease. That's my
That's right.
ultimate vision. I
That's right.
want people, so we don't need primary. All we need is, we may need surgeons every now and then, but you guys, hey, I'm sorry, but that's the ultimate aim. So
Yeah,
just start now. No excuses.
that's right. And you can see my Sam getting fired up, and
I
that's what he's
am
doing at that rally.
indeed.
That's right. That's right. And I appreciate that. So yeah. And let's think about um the future for you again. And this podcast is about protecting your nest. It's about nutrition. It's about exercise, less stress, more sleep, our thoughts, our emotions. It's about relationships. It's about avoiding things that harm us, like organisms and pollutants. It's about, life experiences that serve us. So over the next 12 months, are there areas that Sam's going to focus on so that Sam can be the best version of Sam, be the best version of Sam for himself, for his family, for his lovely wife, and for this community? So, what will you be doing, Sam,
Over the
to
next
protect your
12 months.
nest? Yes,
So
sir.
I think for me, uh, my aim is to just be me, to embrace who I fully am, and to just do
Mm,
what I'm called to do. My
mm,
entire life, I have been called an orator. I have been relied on to explain things to people. So my whole life, I just been like the one standing in the gap,
mm-hmm,
relating information, and you know what I'm saying, helping people that way. So I'm going to embrace that role, and in doing that, hopefully we can establish some additional platforms, some things we're working on to just kind of get more people involved. Right now, we got boots on the ground.
mm-hmm,
We're going to go to churches. We're going to be banging the table for
mm.
anyone who will listen. That, look, we have to get this changed. This is some information you literally cannot live without.
Yeah, what I hear in your voice is passion for this
Indeed.
work, right? And again, when I was asked to do something this weekend to just speak and show up, it doesn't feel like work. So, and
We
when
had a
I
nice
do,
time.
you know what I mean?
It was a
So
nice
what,
time.
man, I'm just loving it. And so check this out. When I do stuff like that, I feel it helps me heal. It helps me to personally grow. It makes me resilient, and because I'm doing something I'm passionate about. So I'm out here helping people heal, helping to inspire people to heal, and I think I get probably more out of it than the people who hear my voice.
Right.
So
That's a
for me,
strange
man,
thing.
this isn't that crazy? So
It
for
is.
everybody checking us out, if you got to this part of the podcast, if you love doing something, even if it's your side thing, your side hustle, as they would like to say, find a way to eventually make that the thing you do. You know
Indeed.
what I mean? Always make that your goal. And if you can't get there, that's okay. But just make sure you give your life enough of that so you can be the best version of yourself. So as we wrap up, my friend, I do want you to be clear about how people can reach you guys, whether it's through the website or any other social media. So what's the best way for people to find you guys?
Probably through our website, nutritionalknowledge.com. We are also on Facebook. Nutritional Knowledge is on Facebook. And as I've indicated, we're in the process of building other platforms. And so real soon, within that next 12 months, like we were talking about,
That's
we'll
right.
be introducing these things and just encouraging people to get involved, to come on, become a member. We all can learn together.
Learn together.
Learn
And
together.
that's a very powerful statement. We're all on a journey.
We
I've
are.
only been a carnivore for a year and a half. Maybe it'll be coming up on 2. And so imagine the carnivores who've been doing it for 30 years. What could they teach me? Right?
Mm,
I'm still
mm.
learning. So although people come to me and ask me all the questions, listen, I'm still learning. So I want to learn from you as much as you're going to learn from me. So I thank you, my brother, for coming to this episode of Protecting Your Nest. You thank your lovely wife for, lending you out a little bit, putting you on a loan, layaway or whatever you and just let her know we're thinking about her. I'll tell her that my wife said hi to her as well. And keep doing this great work you're doing out there, Sam. Appreciate you.
Likewise, brother. I appreciate the opportunity. I will indeed tell.
Please do.
All right.
And I want to, again, Sam today, guys, shared his story, some insights, and particularly the mission of nutritional knowledge, which we appreciate. This struggle he had, weight loss, health challenges, that stuff's in the rearview mirror. We're going to continue to use it as a reminder of where we're not trying to go back to. And then I think if
Indeed.
you're a person trying to reclaim your health and your well-being, I think Sam's story, his knowledge, his resilience, all of that stuff is really something we want to hold on to. So if you're curious and want to learn more, as Sam has suggested, check out Nutritional Knowledge. We'll have a link to their website and just see how they're helping people to take control of their metabolic health. And for those who joined us, we appreciate you coming to the channel, the podcast. And if you feel someone needs to hear a little story of inspiration, share this episode with them. And until we have another episode of the Protecting Your Nest podcast, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest.